Hello and welcome to another episode of the Academy podcast by Anfield Index. It's been a while since the last episode for a few reasons, none less than Liverpool winning the 20th league title. But today we're back talking about the Academy, and I'm glad to be joined by Academy expert Lewis Boer. How we doing, Lewis?
Yeah, not good. Just the same, man. Weird time at the end of the season, almost winding down. The academy season's actually already finished, so in
Yeah,
terms of that, it's a bit of a quiet one, but still games to be played for the first team, and it's a good old time at the minute.
yeah. I think the players are feeling the same, judging by the photos
Yeah.
from Dubai. But yeah, we'll get straight into it about the academy. Like I say, the season's over now. I was just kind of wondering if I could get your review of the academy. Obviously, the first season since Arne Slot's come in. How's it went? Obviously, things went pretty well on first team front. It's fair to say. So, how's things been going in the academy?
Well, it's a difficult one to judge, and it's definitely a transitional year for a few different reasons. I'd say a transitional year for Arne Slot getting his foot under the rug, and but maybe he's been a little bit hesitant at first to use academy players. We first thought they definitely wants to mark his authority on the team in terms of playing style, and it seems that he certainly has a certain standard that must be met in order for academy players to be included, and then a transitional sense. Just in terms of the cycle of players in the academy itself, in terms of personnel, we've mentioned it before, but maybe the under 18 team that would start the season in previous years would be slightly more established in terms of progression. This year we had a lot of fresh faces, a lot of first year scholars starting games straight from the off, where in recent years we've seen more of a gradual introduction for some players. But in terms of the first team, we've had Trinioni, probably been my favourite player, included by Arne Slot. Seems to be well liked. But we've not really seen him involved in the first team for a while. And it'll be nice to see him in the last couple of games, but it's going to be really difficult, I think. The squad is playing for places for next season, and as an academy advocate, it would be great to see some of those lads included, but I understand that it'd be very harsh to leave a player out who's playing for his future. I'd say it's gone, in terms of academy inclusion, I would mark it as a good. I think we've been very lucky with Jurgen Klopp in recent years, who was an expert at getting the best out of prospects who aren't considered the highest of the high tiers. For example, I don't think any of a top six manager would go to Reece Williams for answers. With no disrespect to Reece Williams, almost out of, in a sense of protection for him. I think other managers would rather play midfielder or somebody out of position rather than that. So that is the bar that Slot will be held against. We have the Champions League game against PSV. We saw some fresh names included that we've maybe not seen before, the likes of Kieran Morrison.
Yeah,
was on the pitch. And Marinello, unfortunately, did come on and get sent off.
yeah,
But hindsight is a beautiful thing there. And Trent Doherty came on against Plymouth. So there has been a slight inclusion of the academy lads.
yeah.
Maybe not as heavy as we've seen in recent years. I think that you'd have to say that it's been a good amount. And the first season is almost somewhat of a free pass. It would be preferable to probably see more in the next couple of seasons. But the jury's out. I think it's been a good enough season for Arne Slot on the first team's academy. And then in terms of the academy itself, the teams, very different from the under 21s to the under 18s. The under 18s, results wise, have quite clearly not had a good season.
Yeah.
However, there are some standout performers in there, some players who will move up to the under-21s next season. Out of merit, I would imagine the likes of Sonny Lambie, Bradshaw, I imagine will get a chance for the under-21s next year, despite being under-18 players. If we are given an honest assessment of the under-18s, the results haven't been great. But then we have the question of how do you assess the academy? Is it on player production?
Yeah.
How easily the players are transitioned into the first team. But poor results are always going to happen at academy level. But I think in terms of honours, they would probably expect maybe a high league position or a couple more wins on the drawing board. But there's been some bright spots for sure. And yeah, the under-21s, we've seen a number of under-18s included in there, which maybe you could label as a one of the reasons why results haven't been so good. But again, if we're being fair, that is something all top clubs do. All the top clubs have under-18s, and Chelsea will have under-16s playing before their under-21s. So yeah, it's just something that the club will have to deal with. The under-21s have done a little bit better results-wise. I think Kieran Morrison's been a real bright spot for them. And we've seen Rio Ngamoa introduced into that team. Without anything being, I don't think anything in fairness has been too outstanding this season. It's been a good enough year, I would say. Nothing to worry about. We'll see what the summer brings, because we'll see whether we'll continue to target the people in that 15-16 age bracket from around the country. And of course, there's a vacancy for the under-18s at the moment in terms of management.
Yeah, and just, I guess another thing on that kind of inclusion point is, I think a lot of people think back to, like Klopp's kids, but for that to happen, there was a lot of injuries, wasn't there? So kind of Arne Slot's come in and manage the injuries in the first team really well. So it is a bit of luck as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Even just a very random example, but Marcus Rashford, when he came through, was because of injury. Trent himself was a big talking point at the minute. Was Nathaniel Klein was injured. So there's always the luck there that's needed, and it's just about taking the opportunity when that does come. Yeah,
and just I know you've mentioned quite a few there, and there is so many talented players in the academy at the minute. If you had to pick one just this season who's really caught your eye, who would that be?
I think everybody has their preferences in terms of players that they seem to like. I think with the under-21s, there's a very clear division between the under-18s and the under-21s this season. They want as many first-year scholars stepping into that side. I think Kieran Morrison has had a good year, and I think his development is to be lauded within the context of a team. Is more of a household name at the moment in terms of almost one of the more established academy players. I think Trent Doherty has had a good year. Enough to capture the eye of Arne Slot, who, as we say, does have high standards, and it does seem as the season closes, he's still involved in the first team picture. So those two have had a good season for the under-21s. Ngamoa's stepped up, very much still learning, but it does seem to be coming together with his 2 goals against Aston Villa. Real high moment of the season for him. If you're looking at criticisms of him, which people probably will because of the high level that people hold him to. You probably would expect a few more goals from him if you're being harsh. So it's good to see him slightly increase his numbers by the end of the season. But I think Trent Coney-Doak has a real good season for the under-21s. I think the big one in terms of development is always the under-18s, though, with the fresh batch included every year. And I think I personally really like Joe Bradshaw. And I think he comes a close second here. A real intense player, right-hand-sided winger. And you would say he was a Klopp player. And he was one of the first under-16s included last season. I think he's had a good season, especially in terms of numbers. I think you can't look any further than Josh Sonny Lambie as the under-18 player of the season, just in terms of the numbers that he's put up, how unselfish he is in his play. And he doesn't get too much recognition online, you would say. Not that matters, but I even find myself failing to mention him at times. And he's had a brilliant season. He's actually entered an international call-up and scored for England under-18s. And as he grows and develops, he's going to be a real interesting player to watch in terms of how he adapts to the men's game, as he is in the mould of that modern number 9 who likes to drop deep and link up play. Where I would say in the under-18s, what I would say is a common theme in the under-18s is that players go through phases of playing well, which is to be expected. And you'll have a couple of months where the red hot will die down a little bit. The likes of Oliver O'Connor had a really good start to the season and cooled off a little bit. The DJ Esdale, great right back, Scouser, had a really good start to the season, started picking up a few injuries. And you have a lot of players like that who blow hot and cold throughout the season, which is to be expected. And I would say Josh Sonny Lambie has maintained a great level of consistency throughout. And would be interesting to see what the first team picture is for him. Doesn't seem to have been really included in any kind of training that we know of. But not too many first-year scholars have, really, aside from Rio and Gabon.
Yeah, and just I can kind of open this question up to players who are out on loan as well. You've got the likes of Bajcetic and Dan's. Who do you think is, maybe none of them do, but who do you think's a favourite to kind of stake a place in Arne Slot's first team next season?
Yeah, it is difficult to say because one thing that's difficult for me at the minute is it's a good talking point. I think that we ideally we want the club run in symmetry with the style of Arne Slot and his the way that he sees a team. But I don't think that we've actually seen enough of him to know what an Arne Slot kind of player is. He only signed one player, and that's not gone great in terms of minutes at least. And where we've seen a lot of talk from Slot in terms of control, we want to pass teams to death. I don't think we've actually seen that fully embedded yet. I think we've sacrificed a lot this season. We've suffered a lot of moments of adversity, and probably more than Slot would have liked. And even the signing of Jeremy Frimpong, which seems to be quite impending, I don't think, on the face of things, you would say he's a slot player. He doesn't scream control in the sense of passing somebody to death. Although he does have the physical robustness, I think, in terms of being able to put out any transitions. If we do have a team to pend in and the ball does come out for a 50-50, he's definitely got the physicality to win the ball back high up the pitch. So in terms of the players out on loan, it's difficult to say which ones he would like. He didn't seem to fancy Stefan Bajcetic too much while he was actually here, and there was talk of discipline and things like that. And we've mentioned it many times on this particular pod before, but I think a lot of Liverpool fans really want Ben Doak to at least grab a chance. Just because of how exciting he is. And he has done well out on loan at Middlesbrough. I would say he's maybe the best performer out on loan this season in terms of level of performance.
Yeah.
The high level of a championship. And it's almost a boring answer, really, because he does come up a lot. Potentially, we could see Owen Beck get an opportunity in the season. With talk of a left back coming in. Although I was told by a family member of a loan player that Slot did only personally ask for 2 players to be of him kept up to date in depth. So I think he will be looking at integrating some of the players. And there was talks last season of he was disappointed with the level when he first came in. And hopefully that might maybe baptism of fires for some of these players, are more of a lesson, and they can come back and hit the ground running. I think Doak, Beck will get a chance in pre-season before any decisions made, although I imagine there's going to be a lot of interest in both. Lewis Koumas he started very well. Played under 3 different managers. There's going to be interest in him as well. And then outside of those players and Stefan Bajcetic, I can't see the room for too many more. Apart from Luke Stevenson, especially with Trent leaving, there will be a chance for him at right back, at least in the initial phase of pre-season. I do know that he is somebody that Slot really likes. I don't know if that's in the context of the Liverpool first team, but he just likes the principles of his game and how hard he works. And sometimes it's not even about the level with Slot. From things that I've heard, it's about how well you can follow instructions. And if you're not up to standard, you're out. And Luke Stevenson is somebody that he really likes. So, yeah, I do think we're in a scenario where, unfortunately, that maybe out of everybody who's out on loan at the minute, maybe nobody will be included in Liverpool team this season, just based on what we've seen so far. And then, aside from those that we've just mentioned, I imagine Luke Chambers will be in the pre-season squad should he be injured. But yeah, it's been nobody's. If it wasn't for Doak's injury, you'd say that he would have had a brilliant season. I think Beck's had a very consistent season. I don't think anybody's really pulled up any trees aside from that.
Yeah, and one player whose loan didn't really go to plan was Jayden. Obviously went on loan to Sunderland, picked up an injury, and hasn't played at all, not a single minute. What do you think's next for him? Do you think a loan move next season? Maybe it would just make sense to go to Sunderland. Obviously, I'm sure he's been integrating with a lot of the squad up there, even though he's been injured. So would that be a move that would make sense, maybe?
A lot will depend on A, if he's fit, fit that season, and then B, if Sunderland get promoted. I'd imagine that Jayden doesn't become as viable as he would be in the Championship for them. He's still looking for his first real time away from Liverpool in terms of senior football. And would that be in the Premier League? I don't think he has a style of football that does translate well to high-level football, to be fair. But I just think in terms of minutes, he should be looking at the Championship. Maybe we spoke about that there was a link while he was in League One, but maybe Wrexham could come in for Jayden. This is bit of a random shout. Not
They seem to be spending the money all right. I saw yesterday they've offered, I think it's like £50,000 to sign Tom Kearney from Fulham. So maybe.
Yeah, you never know. It might be a decent enough option. Should he get the minutes? I've seen, although I don't know anything in terms of the personnel, but I see people say we have a lot of strikers on the books at the moment. But I still see people say that they need a striker. I imagine that those will be phased out. But we spoke about it earlier in the season. The injuries weren't too much of a concern, and they're still not. It's not make or break or anything like that. But it would be ideal to start getting some minutes on the pitch.
Yeah.
But also, I'm sure he agrees that it's to no fault of his own. I'm sure he doesn't want to be injured. So we'll see how he's managed. What Liverpool do well is we've had a number of players who have had long-term injuries, and I think in recent years Liverpool have done really well at managing those situations. The likes of Cade Gordon, who we've not mentioned, to be fair. He's done well to come back, even with the first team. So hopefully he can be one of those that manages to put his injury problems behind him, because there is a great player in there, but you don't want him to miss his window of opportunity. Still very young.
Yeah, and just I know we kind of spoke about Bajcetic a bit earlier, but obviously he was at Las Palmas and they got relegated, I'm pretty sure, the other day. So I've heard I've seen a lot of people. Busquets seem to get thrown. Sergio Busquets, his name seems to get linked a lot with them. Obviously, that's a high pressure on him, but he has got that style of play. And when I asked you earlier, I think he would be, again, when we think of Slot players, he does actually seem like someone who Slot would like, but like you say, it just didn't seem to work last pre-season. So it will be really interesting to see what happens with him.
And then there seems to be some tentative links in terms of Endo leaving, without anything too concrete. But very, 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 very early in the window as well, so you never know what might happen there. And number 6 from the talk around doesn't seem to be too much of a priority for Liverpool at the minute. Although maybe an extra player in there would be useful, but with other priorities, maybe Bajcetic provides bit of cover there and allows us to save some money. On the other hand, if Endo is willing to stick around for another season, which I imagine Slot would like him to, based on what he speaks about him in press conferences, then Bajcetic does have a number of good minutes under his belt in the La Liga now, and does he at that point become a saleable asset, which the club would be willing to cash in? And there has been a lot of positive talk around his loan. He's not yet seemed fancied by Slot. So I don't think next season he will be starting too many games for Liverpool next season. But you never know.
Yeah, and just another one. We spoke last time, I think it was maybe last time or the time before, about Conor Bradley. Obviously, a lot of pressure now on him with Trent confirming he's going to go, but he seems to have the full support of the fans. But last time we spoke, I remember you mentioned there was a bit of kind of stalling over the contract. Obviously, I don't know whether you know anything, but I'm assuming there is still the expectation that does get done, the contract for Conor Bradley.
Yeah. I'm never an in the know guy or anything like that. It's just obviously something that there was a contract offer in December, which was maybe a bit further apart than people would have liked. Just from the way, I don't think we can always read too much into things, but maybe I don't think we can always read too much into what managers say. But maybe with Arne Slot we can, because he does seem to be quite an honest, upfront manager. Very Dutch. The way that he speaks about Bradley, it does seem to be as positive in the sense that he wants to keep him around. He has mentioned that he can eventually be a starting right back for Liverpool. He's mentioned about using these last couple of games in a way to prepare him for next season, which to me suggests that he will be around in the long term. which is good. I imagine they would be interested in him. And just as a side note, I don't think there's any right back from the academy who's really ready to step up at the moment. In terms of offering cover, it would be somewhat of a blow to lose two in quick succession. We've got Josh Davidson and Isaac Mabea from the under 21s, who are good prospects, decent prospects in the grand scheme of football, but maybe the ages mean that they need to go out and get minutes elsewhere. And standards at Liverpool are incredibly high. I mean, DJ Esdale is an interesting one. He has had a good season from the under 18. Sorry, probably one of the standout players. Still very raw, but a lot of good attributes. But it's probably too early for him. I think Conor Bradley will be here to stay. I can't see us. I couldn't even really see us signing Frimpong this season and another right back next season. But you never know. I think Bradley will sign new contracts and stay.
Yeah. And just to finish off, we won't talk about this for long, but obviously Bradley is replacing Trent, who has announced his leaving, and he got a bit of a cold reception, it's fair to say, at Anfield on Sunday. And I'm not going to ask you your thoughts on the booing or anything like that, because that's been done to death. But I've seen a few people kind of worried that the booing kind of sends the wrong message to the academy lads. Kind of, if you do come through, you kind of held, and I know that's not where any Liverpool fans coming from, just to put that out there, but kind of what is the feeling around the academy about the move? Obviously, I'm assuming they all wish him quite well. Just like it seems like the players are well on board with like his decision.
Yeah, I don't think there's any ill feeling there, but you have to say while he's a credit to himself, he's a very unique player, so much talent. Maybe the most naturally gifted player Liverpool have ever produced. But he is a success story of the academy, and the academy does have to be commended. Not to put down the current setup, but with that, it wouldn't be anybody who's there currently, just for work done as he's come through as a teenager. Those around him have done incredibly well. It's a difficult one. It is a first, to be fair. I've never heard a player in a Liverpool shirt be booed before. While playing for Liverpool. So it's a first. I think it's just more of a sign of maybe just modern times with social media and how accessible players are, and everybody wants a voice to be heard, and there's always a snowball effect. Potentially, I don't think anybody is wrong to boo him. It just is what it is. And as somebody who's not from the city myself, I could never feel the emotions what those fans are feeling. And it's a bit of a tricky one. I understand what some fans are saying. There has been a little bit of mystique around it in the last month, in terms of it did look like he was definitely going, and he almost pulled us back in. But ultimately, he's a massive success story of the Liverpool academy, and I don't think that the booing will send a bad message to players from the academy at all.
Well, it's a terrible situation, really. It's a bit frustrating that we have to kind of talk about it, especially like the times that we're in where we've just won the league. But hopefully that's the end of it now. Hopefully in the last few games it's kind of put to bed.
It will be maybe slightly too far if he's maybe booed at like the parade or when we lift the church or anything like that. So everyone's got the feelings out there. Let's all move on.
That's where I'm at. Kind of hope everyone's got everything off their chest and we can just focus on giving the reception to the lads who really deserve it this season. But that's all for today. Obviously, we'll talk again in a few weeks where hopefully, we probably will know a lot more about the future of some of the players that we spoke about today. We'll see where it goes from there. But thank you very much for your time today. It's been a good episode, so thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
And we'll keep an eye out for all the other content on Anfield Index. Obviously, there's loads about the first team winning the league, and transfer silly season has well and truly started now. So yeah, there's loads of stuff on that. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you again in a few weeks for the next episode. Thank you very much for watching.